Hello everyone and welcome to your NARSA weekly update for the week commencing Monday the 10th of November 2025. It's Gary here again, and here's a funny thing. I hope you're sitting down for this part. We won 3 league games in a row. Now, it doesn't really feel like that because we've had some stink bomb performances and results in that mix as well, but it feels like the first time we've won 3 league games in a row for an age, doesn't it? And I loved what Danny Rule said after yesterday's game, where he said, when we first came in, we had 9 points, and now we have another 9 points from the preceding 3 games. And that's true. I mean, what was that? 9 points from 8 games, was it? Something like that. And now we have doubled that in the last 3 games. So that's not insignificant in terms of the types and styles of results that we were getting, especially in the league up to and including that particular time. I've never seen so many draws in that introduction to the league campaign there. So, obviously for those of my vintage, that 3 league wins in a row should be staple. That should be exactly what we're expecting and should be getting every single season as we go forward. 3, then 4, then 5, then 6, then 10, and all that sort of thing. But it just hasn't been like that for quite some time, has it? It hasn't really been like that since Steven Gerrard left, quite frankly, after the 55 season. And I have to say, I am loving it. And it is a wee bit, I don't know if bittersweet is the right way to say it, but it's a bit, as I mentioned briefly earlier there, it's kind of tinged in between these absolutely horrendous European performances and results that we've been getting. And then obviously on the back of a very disappointing League Cup semi-final defeat last weekend in a state where we didn't have a level playing field. Let me just say that. But, one thing before I get to the what Gaz got wrong last week's segment here, and this one was actually self-penned. I did not get one bit of feedback from anyone else, and I'm very surprised at that because it was a bit of a doozy. But one thing I did want to say just before I get to that point was that, I actually am really liking the vibe under Danny Rule. His record in terms of wins to defeats is not good. In terms of a new manager, he's probably got like a 50-50 record right now, something along those lines, maybe a wee bit weighed in his favour. I'm not 100% sure, but there's been a couple of European defeats in there and a League Cup defeat, and then maybe it is 50-50 actually. Maybe that's 6 games he's done. Forgive me for not having all the facts in there, but it's just a feeling that I have, and I think that a lot of the fans have. You can see the connection he has with the fans when you're watching the games on TV, and they're just singing the Danny Rule song, for it feels like almost the entire game. He's loving it, they're loving it, we're liking what we're seeing. I think there's an acknowledgement there that he's doing the very best he can with the limited tools that he has available to him. And here we are at a major crossroads now, where he has an opportunity to work with the majority of the players. Some will be away on international break, of course, but he has an opportunity to work with the majority of the players for a couple of weeks. I imagine they would have some time off, so maybe it's going to be like a week as it all kind of unfolds here. And just to see what he can try to instill in them. Now, I remember back to even Gio's time, and sometimes even in the early part of Gerrard's, the later part, I should say, of Gerrard's era, when some players were going away on international duty, we came back and there was a difference in the team. They've went away. Some of them have went away and had an experience. Some of them stayed and had an experience, and it's trying to kind of bring all that good experience into gel towards a more successful team afterwards. But when Gerrard left, under Gio, under Philippe Clement, under the various other situations that we've had since that particular time, it's always felt like I've dreaded the international break for 2 reasons. One, I'm just not a huge fan of international football. I watch the bigger tournaments, but I don't really care for it too much. And 2, we're kind of up and down. It's a roller coaster team that we've got right now, and you don't know what you're going to get from game to game. Maybe we do in the league. 3 a pattern? Who knows? But you get to that spot where you're kind of thinking, I hope this doesn't derail us. I hope this doesn't give us an opportunity for some tough times when we get back. Now, our fixtures when we get back are actually pretty decent to us, so it might be something to look forward to. I was going to say it might not be something to dread, but you get the gist. It's the same sort of thing. But in terms of the vibe under the manager, he's saying the right things. He seems very, very honest. He's very cool, calm and composed when he's having his interviews, talks about what he wants to talk about, and will just shut down whatever he doesn't want to talk about. Feels like we've got a real manager in place here, and I wouldn't go as far to say so far so good in terms of the personality, in terms of the presence, in terms of the understanding and the connection that we have with him as a manager. Yes, I would say that's so far so good. The results, no, the results need to get better in the other competitions, but the league is, as we always say, is our bread and butter, and we have an opportunity now to mount a bit of a challenge there. So we'll see what that looks like. Anyway, on to the what Gaz got wrong last week. I was in my kind of haze after a very heavy 4 or 5 days with my nephew being in town, I should say. His presence really kind of knocked me for six a wee bit. And I'd said last week that the red card should have been given for Kenny. I did say it was supposed to be for Kenny, and it should have been for Austin Trusty. And I'm going to blame 964 beers that I can remember in the preceding 5 days, and a hearty hangover that particular morning when I was watching the game, and some kind of dodgy notes that I took during the game that didn't make much sense afterwards. But that was a complete mess. His name is very well known to us now because of all the furore that's happened since then. In terms of, obviously, it was a red card, and it should have been a red card. We seen it in at the very beginning at the time, and the only person who never was the referee, and VAR, for whatever reason, just decided to sit. For whatever reason, they just decided to sit on their hands, and I think we kind of know why. And here's a shocker, and sit down for this part again. The key match incident panel last Thursday or Friday found that VAR should have intervened, and if they had intervened and Nick Walsh had gone to the TV, he undoubtedly would have brandished a red card to Austin Trusty for that challenge. Or would he have done that? Who knows what that would have looked like? I'm not 100% sure myself based on that guy. So being vindicated after the fact, that there is some crumb of comfort in that, in terms of that's more evidence that we can use for any dossiers or transcripts or whatever we're putting together to provide evidence to the authorities. But the challenge is they keep happening. They still are going on, and it's still the same suspects that's happening with, and that's just something that we're going to have to get used to. I don't mean get used to as in accept what's happening, but we're going to have to get used to that and counteract that with some level of actual affirmative action, in terms of this is what we're expecting. The Fan Advisory Board came out last week and said we demand an independent review. I don't know and understand why there's not more proactivity really from the authorities to say this actually isn't good enough. We're actually damaging the spectacle of the game. Like, millions of people would have been watching that last week. And then you just see this massive, gigantic bias mistake being made. And then you can start to think back, if you're paying any attention, and say, this always seems to happen to just the one team out of the two in these games here. That's kind of odd. Isn't that a thing? If you're not really paying too much attention, it's just not good enough, folks. It's just nowhere near good enough. And now that we have this other bit of evidence from the key match incident panel, what are we actually going to do with that? I did see an article on Sky Sports a wee bit earlier today. I'm recording a bit later today, just had a busy morning. And right now, what's that, 2:46 p.m? And I saw an article on Sky Sports saying that now that we have the information from the KMI, that we are now in a situation where we're going to be demanding, I don't know what it is, further talks, more definitive action, whatever that looks like. So we'll see what transpires over the next couple of days. It'll be maybe a wee bit dormant because we're in international break time, but there's no time like the present in terms of actually righting any wrongs that need to be righted. So let's just see what Rangers do over the next wee while. In terms of the game segment, same as every other week it seems to be, folks. It's one bad, one good. It's that roller coaster that I was talking about. And of course, the first one was Thursday's 2-0 defeat at home to Roma in the Europa League, which continues to keep us rooted at the very bottom of the table. I think, we're pretty much, what's that, halfway through now? Halfway, 4 games of the 8 done. It's not impossible to say that we could get 12 points from the next 4 games, but it's very, very unlikely based on the way we've been showing up in Europe. And it's so disappointing from a variety of levels, but one being more so, Europe was our biggest distraction for the last few years. Once the league championship was gone round about this time of the year, which obviously for us was a wee bit earlier in the season, but we'll talk about that when we get to the next game. When you're in that situation where you're saying, you know what, we've always got Europe to look forward to, and we'll just provide these performances. And it was a wee bit exasperating, I should say. Where you're in that situation where you're like, how can you guys not do this on Sunday at home to Aberdeen, but we can do that away to insert European team name here. The challenge is that they play differently and such, but it just seems to be our collective abilities has just dropped this season, and we're just, we're obviously the worst team in the entire group. I thought we started relatively well, kind of as we do sort of thing, where you've got that, not really creating chances or anything like that, but doing what we need to do to keep the fans on side. And then we lose another goal, another set piece goal, at the front post, and the guy flicks it on, and then there's two of them with an opportunity to slot it home there. I mean, like, what are we doing? I play football, and we very rarely lose the same goal twice, and we're a bunch of old farts in the team that I play on, but we very rarely lose the same goal twice, because we're like, right, make sure that doesn't happen again. We're losing very, very similar goals game after game after game, so not good enough, nowhere near good enough. And I think it's very obvious that the defence is nowhere near good enough with the amount of chopping and changing that he's doing. And there, Chermiti had a chance not long after, which he just never got himself set up for that, put it past the post. The boy can't do anything right these days, and I'm feeling really bad for him, quite honestly. He's putting effort in when he's coming on the field, but it's just not happening for him. And for their second goal, I was hoping, I'd actually just had that thought in my head where I'm going to be delighted if we get this to 1-0 at half time and just see what we can maybe do in the second half. And then about, 39 minutes, something like that, we're completely all over the place for their second goal, basically nowhere near them. And they get the opportunity just to kind of slot it home. We had a brilliant chance right after that, after some brilliant work by Gassama, and we just did not get a break in the box. And then their defender had a last gasp challenge to keep Mikey Moore, the ever increasingly brilliant Mikey Moore, out, and then kept the game at 2-0. And it's those things. Yes, Roma were much better than us. The stats will tell you that in a wee second here. But it's not just about talent and skill and application. There's emotion, and there's feeling, and there's fervour, and there's a whole bunch of things that go into winning a game of football. And our fans are genuinely, definitely the 12th man when it comes to big European nights at Ibrox. If that had went in not long before half time, then we're having a different conversation at the very least. But unfortunately, some good defending there is what happened. In the second half, we did have a chance for Chermiti into the side netting. Actually, no, sorry, I was getting that confused for the first chance. And then we got away with one when about 70 minutes when the guy hit the bar. Like, he was like, what was he, like half a yard out, wasn't he? He hit the bar, and then Connor Barron cleared it from the line there. And other chances as the game progressed for both sides, but 2-0, Roma felt like they were having a good time. It was a routine victory, let's just say that, not where they had to try too hard. And unfortunately, we got what we deserved. If you don't take your chances and you defend like we did, 2 gift goals that we gave them, and our finishing is just beyond woeful. We get found out even more in the European stage. The positives, I thought it was a decent second half, honestly, I did. And we did create some chances, and we never stopped. We kept going. And I think that's where the boos are being replaced with a kind of, what would you say, a begrudging applause at the end of the game, where, yeah, we're disappointed, we're a wee bit upset, but we're kind of like, we know you guys are trying, and we just know collectively right now, the way things are going, you're not good enough. And maybe that's that, you're not good enough yet, and some good things will be able to be squeezed out of this team between now and the end of the season, or now and the end of the European campaign at least. But there's effort there, and there's endeavour there, and I think that's to be celebrated, that's to be applauded. And they're not to say that it's anywhere good enough or anything like that, but when it's not good enough and it looks like they're not trying, that becomes compoundingly frustrating as well. In terms of the negatives, that's apparently a new record. I mean, this team this is a bunch of record breakers this season, isn't it? And that's 7 defeats in a row now in Europe. So just absolutely beyond bizarre, obviously just dating back to the qualifiers for the Champions League there this season. We're just not we're not getting more goals in games, and that's the scourge of the team. And it's the scourge of the team overall, not just in Europe, but as I say, we get a wee bit more found out. In Europe, we do have a lot of options up front, but they're just not working. And by the way, isn't Majovski an absolute shadow of the player that we saw at Aberdeen? He couldn't miss at Aberdeen, and no wonder he was so highly sought after. Whatever has happened to him since he went to Spain and then came back, it's like he doesn't know what he's doing, doesn't know where he's supposed to be. Maybe the coach doesn't really know how to use him, doesn't really know or understand exactly what his best game or his best play or his best formation is. But we were all, I think everyone to a person was looking forward to him coming back. And this guy has not had the best of starts. Let's just say that he's not quite as bad as Chermiti in terms of a lack of confidence and a lack of understanding as to why we even bought him in the first place. But the stock that he had from his time at Aberdeen is vastly diminishing game after game after game. In terms of the stats from the Rangers site, it said we had 40% possession with 9 shots and 2 on target. 9 shots on goal with 2 on target. I don't remember the 9, to be honest. Versus they had 10 shots with 3 on target. They scored 2 of the 3 and we scored 0 of the 2. So they've got, 60% record? We've got a 0% record. And in terms of the referee watch, I think the referee did well. I don't have any issue or complaints with the referees. Mostly in Europe, there's the very, very odd occasion where something bizarre might happen in game, but these guys are just better. They're just better. They feel more balanced. They feel more fair, and they kind of seem to know what they're doing a wee bit better than the folks that we have to deal with or endure, should I say, domestically. And then the second game, of course, was so he's going to get a 7 out of 10. Sorry, I should say that. And the second game was yesterday's 3-0 win at Dens Park, as I say, for the third league win on the trot. If anybody's listening and knows when the last time we won 3 games in a row, please do let me know. I don't remember when that was, and it might have been recently. That's why maybe not that many people have been mentioning it. But certainly anywhere I've been reading or consuming, it hasn't been mentioned. I absolutely loved the brilliant observance of the minute silence before the game. Good for Dundee, good for Dundee's fans, good for the players and the staff and everyone connected with the club for absolutely observing it impeccably. It was incredible. And then we didn't really start, did we? The first 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes or so. And then we get the smallest guy on the field winning a header again. It's almost like a goal that Rangers would lose, isn't it? Where we've got Nico Raskin, a brilliant corner for Tav. Raskin pops into this area where he's on his own. Dundee were doing this kind of zonal marking, especially for set pieces, and Raskin's like, "Cool, I'll take that, boys," and then just went in and got the goal. And then a brilliant second goal that we got where we've got a superb move. And then you've got Mikey Moore's first goal for a really good finish as well that he had. Then it should have been 3-0, in my opinion. Absolutely, it should have been 3-0. There's a wee stramash. Moore gets a second. There's a VAR check for about 45 minutes, it felt like. And then they say, no, who was it? Danilo? Was it Danilo was in the way, or Diamandi? I can't remember now. And they said he was interfering with the goalie's vision after the goalie made a save. After the goalie seen the ball, made a save, pushed it out, and then Moore finished it from the side. So, like, what are we doing now? If it's just not fair, if you're kind of in a way that's kind of not like, if you didn't save it, then absolutely, yeah, right, okay, you could see that, but get a grip, folks. But the key for me here is not so much the impeding stuff. I understand that to a point. There was a handball in the lead up to that, so if it wasn't going to be a goal, it should have been a handball. Zero mention of that whatsoever. Like, what is that about? And I thought it was really disappointing for Mikey Moore, because then at that point he would be on a hat-trick, after scoring his first goal for Rangers. And as I said earlier there, he's the most improved player by a mile in the team since Danny Rule came in, and good for him. We're starting to see it now and get the fervour. And the best scenario for us is that he just continues to get better and better and better, impacting and influencing very important games for us between now and May. And he goes away with our fondest wishes and our best thanks. And he has a place in our hearts, and we have a place in his heart. And he goes on to have an absolutely brilliant career. And we've helped in some way by him helping us. So that's the way it's trending for right now. And long may that continue. Then we did the Rangers thing where we made some changes. I think, what was it, 3 changes at half time? And then we had a really poor second half. I don't know tactically what Dundee did to change it, but we weren't clean, we weren't crisp, we weren't shutting things down, we weren't moving forward with purpose as much as we were in the first half. And it was just kind of, I didn't feel under any real severe pressure. Yes, they had a lot of shots, but all the shots were right down, pretty much all of them, all the ones I remember anyway, were right down Jack Butland's throat. He was just basically gathering them up all day and just giving ourselves a chance for a wee bit of a break before we gave them the ball back so they could do the exact same again. But it wasn't one of those nervy 2-0s where I'm like, oh my God, they're going to score in 81 minutes and it's going to be a frantic last 10 or 12 or 13, 14 minutes or so. We just kind of contained them that much despite the shots, as I mentioned. Then we've got this brilliant finish by Gassama at the very end, just as Rangers Supporters Club of Calgary Vice President Alec Liddell is saying this guy is, I won't tell you exactly what he said because this is a family-friendly show, but it was along the lines of, he is useless. And then he scores that goal. So we had a bit of a laugh and cheers a pint after the game to that particular comment. Keep being you, Alec. And then if that's going to inspire our players to score worldies like that, then I'm more than happy. And 3-0 is the way it finished. And that makes our bank balance in terms of the goal difference look really good. We're up at 5 now, whereas before we were teetering on the 0 after like double figures of games. And it's like beyond bizarre when you look at it. And we're in much better shape now, folks. We've got the positives in terms of that. I mean, that's 3 in a row, of course. That's three more points, 2 clean sheets in a row away from home. Hearts dropping points. That brings us closer to them. We have a game in hand. We're 4th in the table, but we have a game in hand over Hibs. And Mikey Moore is just getting better and better and better. And it's good to get 3 different goal scorers as well. That always makes a wee bit of a difference to spread the goals around about things. In terms of the negatives, I think really only the second half. Some of the absolute nonsense that was talked on the WhatsApp group after the game was just beyond our joke, to be perfectly honest with you. But other than that, in terms of the game, the second half was just kind of right. It was painful to watch, quite frankly. And it's just one of these things that we're going to just have to put up with. I would much rather be saying that with a 3-0 victory in the bag than saying that after we in some way capitulated or got beat in some other way or fashion that we are wont to do, or certainly were at the beginning of the season. The stat says we had 54% of possession. That must have been because of the second half where we started to give them a lot of the ball. 8 shots on goal with 5 on target. And scoring 3 of those, that's more than 50%. That's good. Versus 12 shots with 10 on target, and that's mostly the second half. But that's a lot. That is a lot of chances to give up against a better team on another day. That might have worked out like to be a different result for us. So we need to be very, very careful about understanding what that is, why that was, and what we're going to do about that as we're moving forward as well. So really good information. In terms of the ref watch, that Matthew McDermott, I always forget that guy's name, and I just found it this morning on the Rangers website. So thank you, Rangers, for putting that there. And I think overall he did all right. The only thing I would like to complain about, there was one point, I think it was the start of the second half, and a guy goes down. It's actually not even a foul or anything. He just goes down. Like, these guys, when they go in and there's some sort of impact, it's like they're conditioned, they're trained almost to just scream. I imagine there's a scream in there somewhere. We can't hear it too much on Rangers TV. And then just go down as if their foot has been cut off, or as if they've got a shattered foot or ankle or knee or whatever. And it's acting, it's cheating in my perspective. And this guy goes down. So what I'm noticing now is the referees, despite not sending off players for kicking goalkeepers in the head, what they're more than willing to do is stop a game when somebody has a non-head injury. So what I'd like to know is there actually a change in the rules that if you think there is a debilitating injury that's occurred to a player, whether it's accidental or intentional, they have the right to stop the game? Because if that's the case, it would be good if somebody just explained that, because it used to be you don't stop the game unless it's a head knock. And now I'm seeing it more and more and more. And I've mentioned before, the referees are really creating a challenge for us because someone's going to get hurt. If that was a fraction the other way, a week past on Sunday, Jack Butland's eye could have been taken out, with that stupidity from that player who has since, said, well, I never meant it, and I apologise, so let's just move on. Doesn't work like that, mate. Does not work like that. So if there's a rule change, I'll accept that. I don't know if that's the case or not, and I don't like the way they do that, because it's just time wasting, and it's just an opportunity to break up the play when they've not got what they wanted from that particular tackle. So that plus the length of time with VAR and not giving the handball, which I thought was so clear cut in terms of a potential penalty for us to go 3-0 up in the first half there, he's going to get 6 out of 10 for that one, and I'm sure he'll be devastated by that. In terms of the next games, this week is the international break. Big week for Scotland. They could actually secure automatic qualification by winning the next 2 games, but difficult games that they've got. And it was great to see Conor Barron getting a late call-up today due to some injury call-offs from other players. So who've we got now? John Souttar, Liam Kelly and Conor Barron in the squad. So I'll keep an eye on the results. Hopefully they go Scotland's way and we have something to look forward to for next World Cup next year there. In terms of our shout-outs for this week, do you know what I was hoping to do right now? I was hoping to say congratulations to the Calgary Cavalry on winning the Canadian Premier League, which they call the North Star Cup here, but in the most bizarre game, I think, honestly, that I've ever seen in my life. These guys were playing at sometimes a foot of snow. And the snow was absolutely relentless. The snowiest conditions I've ever seen in a game. The ball was actually flowing. It must have just been skidding off the top. But the ball was rolling exceptionally normally for the conditions. You would have thought it would have either completely skidded off the surface or it would have just got completely bogged down. And it did now and again. But for the most part, in normal time, it was absolutely... It was different to what I expected. Let's just maybe say that. But for any other sport other than skiing or snowboarding or snowmobiling or cross country, whatever, I've never seen it. Like there's no place in football for that type of snow. It was beyond a joke. And then what they did after full time with it being 1-1, and former Ranger Fraser Aird was the guy that put the Cavalry ahead in the first half, and then we got pegged back by what they're calling the icicle kick. This guy, I thought it was an absolute peach of a finish and superb goal. I think the only thing that will stop it from being like goal of the century or the best goal that you've ever seen in the Canadian Premier League was you couldn't really see it that much because the cameras, it's not like 4K or anything like that, where you're looking, you're like, oh my word, look at all these different angles. That it was such reduced visibility for the majority of the 90 minutes that they had. They had to take a couple of breaks in each half to get the lines cleared of snow and such. The goalies out with the snow shovel and oof, my word. So all that to say, a disappointment for ex-Ranger Fraser Aird, and really is too bad, especially after putting in a really good performance overall over the entire season. But the Cavalry lost to Atletico Ottawa, and that's a thing. And they now qualify for the CONCACAF Champions League, Ottawa, that is. And it's a shame. Yeah, it was too bad because Cavalry's been in the final the last 3 years. I mean, we could be talking here, if it wasn't for a wee bit of bad luck and just coming up against an opposition that was a wee bit better on the night, we could be talking about a dynasty, really, couldn't we? We could talk about 3 championships in a row and start to say these are genuinely the team to beat. But unfortunately, they've been in the final 3 of the last years and won only 1 of the 3. So that's a bit of a disappointment, but maybe something that would be celebrated a wee bit overall over time as well. And I did want to give a bit of a shout out to Tom Robb and his lovely wife Laurie, who came to the club yesterday. Tom's a member of our newest club in NARSA, the Victoria Rangers Supporters Club on Victoria Island in British Columbia. And he was going to try and come to the Celtic game, couldn't make it there that day, and then came down on the weekend. And they were accompanied by their very heavily pregnant daughter, Samantha, and that's actually the reason that Tom and Laurie are in town. They're waiting on the baby being born. By the time I'm recording this right now, the baby could actually have been born. She was very, very pregnant, folks. I'd said to her, listen, you're not planning to have that baby this morning because we really want to watch this game here, and it was great to see them. Great energy, great for visiting Bears to come and spend a wee bit of time. I didn't actually get a chance to say cheerio to Laurie and Samantha because I thought they were maybe going out for a coffee and then coming back in, and they says thanks, cheerio, and I just kind of nodded and such, thinking I would get a chance to chat to them later on. So Tom, if you're listening, please do pass on my apologies and please do say thank you to them for coming along. They were actually going away because Samantha had an acupuncture appointment and they weren't intending on coming back anyway, so that was not my intent to not be my usual absolute wonderful host that you can expect every time you come to the Rangers Sports Club of Calgary. And a wee bit of a belated birthday wish to NARSA Vice President Gary Fleming. It was his birthday last Thursday, and Rangers gave him a wonderful birthday present by getting beat again in Europe. So happy belated birthday, Gary. Reminder of Amanda and Jason Jr. Ross, who are running the London Marathon in April, and on behalf of or in support of the Royal British Legion. Very, very poignant in this week of remembrance. And the Melbourne City Loyal, what's that now? Is that next week? It must be next week coming up there, not this weekend, but the next weekend. Their Culture Weekend, November 21st to 22nd. Ian Ferguson of 9 in a row era, Gary Stevens, Stuart Monroe, all going. There's a boat cruise. There's Rangers songs by a guest from Scotland. There's a gala dinner and a whole bunch of hilarity, I am sure. For the convention update, I can officially confirm it's 212 days and 30 weeks. Next week, we're going to be in the 20s. 30 weeks until Nashville 2026, and that's going to be at current planning schedule. It's going to be June the 11th to the 14th. Now, that is the opening weekend of the World Cup. I did mention that before. I'll continue to mention that as we go forward. And we're basically kind of in the same spot. Certainly from your listening perspective, we're in the same spot as we were last week in terms of the property, the format, the lineup, the pricing is all to be determined at this point. But what I can tell you is what Alan and Brian have been working on in the background is really narrowing down the properties that are going to be appropriate for what we're looking for. And what the real plan of attack here is we'll get the property, we'll get the contract signed. And as soon as the contract's signed, I will make the announcement the very next podcast, and we'll see how it goes from there. In fact, I'm going to be having Alan McWatt, NARSA President Alan McWatt, on the podcast next week. And the ideal scenario is that we have a signed contract by them and we can announce it to you for next week. That's the plan. That's the hope. It just takes a wee bit of time to get there. It's not just a case of getting the contract, casting an eye over it super quickly and then just signing it. There's a lot of things we need to do just to make sure that it's absolutely so, or just so, for our ability to be able to put on the type of style of event. Once we have the property, then we're going to be in a position to say, right, what is this property appropriate for? What is it in proximity to? What does that look like in terms of our itinerary? I keep saying, and I'll continue to say, that we are going to build a little bit of a different itinerary in terms of what we're doing. There'll still be the cultural component parts of that. There will still be an opportunity for us to congregate in various places and have an opportunity to really spend some time with Rangers legends and such like that. But we're going to do something a wee bit different. And, we took the time to do the survey. Hundreds of people took the time to respond to the survey, and we're going to respond to the responses and actually give you an experience to remember as well. So all that to say, we've honed it down to one, maybe two properties at this particular point. We do have a contract draft in hand right now. We just haven't had a chance to really properly go through it, make sure it's commensurate with what we're hoping for, and then the ability to get it signed, and then the ability to make the announcement and put the room bookings out for open. Put the room bookings open for booking, I should say. Wow, that was great English there, Gary, wasn't it? But we're very, very, very close. So Destination NARSA 2026, Nashville, Tennessee. We're very close to getting the property locked in, hopefully. And we will hopefully be in a position to communicate that over the next, this time next week would be the ideal scenario, wouldn't it? So we'll see how that goes. In terms of communication for this past week, there was a Gers guide there, of course, because both the men's and the women's team won. So there's always good news to share. So we got the Gers guide there. We've got away days for the men's team in Dundee. We've got the Rangers women's team highlights from yesterday. There's a Mikey Moore press conference after the game yesterday, which wasn't published until today. And then there's something to do with the Academy Monthly, an overview of the activity for the Academy teams. Tomorrow's the loan review, and then there's an interview with Jodie McCleary. There's a major Old Firm game coming up this week on Friday, and there's an Old Firm preview there. And then there's also the Sky Sports semi-final draw. So to spoil the surprise, yes, the Rangers women's team did beat Partick Thistle 3-0 in the quarter-final of the Sky Sports Cup, and we're now in the semi-final. We'll find out tomorrow who we're playing, and hopefully we get an opportunity for a three-peat this season and get that trophy firmly back in the trophy cabinet. That would be great after a very, very dismal start to the league campaign for the team overall. On Wednesday, there's an international preview, and there's an interview with the Rangers women's team manager Leanne Crichton to kind of preclude what's hoping to be the intent of the game on Friday, which is obviously a win, and we're trying to get the league campaign back on track from that. And on Thursday, there's a preview interview with Nicola Docherty. Then on Friday is the game. And the game is at Ibrox on Friday at 7:30. Rangers versus Celtic in the Scottish Power Women's Premier League. So we don't have any actual proper Rangers football to look forward to for a wee while yet. So if you're at a bit of a loose end on Friday night, you want to go along and cheer on the lassies, the Rangers women's team, then please do so. Kick-off is at 7:30, as I say. Then nothing too much happening Saturday, Sunday. I have the pleasure of interviewing Stevie Jukes from the band St. Phoenix tomorrow morning, and it's going to be a bit of a combo interview where we're going to be talking about the Happy Place workshops and all the work they're doing in terms of the charity work that they've been doing now for the last couple of years. And then we're also going to talk about the forthcoming tour as well. So there's going to be a wee bit of Rangers stuff in there and a wee bit of, like my sort of stuff that I do on my other podcast for my business, which is, wellness and self-development, self-education, coaching and things like that. Not 100% sure where the interview will go, but Stevie is very much looking forward to it. We've tried 2 or 3 times. This is the final lockdown date. I hope it actually happens tomorrow. It's supposed to be 9 a.m. my time, and then we'll get it out there. I think we'll get it out there as quickly as we can. So maybe a bonus episode that we put out a wee bit later this week, or we combine it with next week's. I'm not 100% sure. We'll see what the interview actually turns out to be. There's the interview that I planned, there's the interview that I have, and then there's the interview that I should have had. That's the typical cycle of everything that I do in my life. So we'll see what that looks like. But really looking forward to seeing Stevie again. Great guy doing great work, and they have a European and North American tour coming up, which is absolutely fantastic for them. So I know that we'll be talking about that too. I did also see an event on the Rangers website in Club 72 under the Ibrox lights. Enjoy a live Q&A with Rangers star Brogan and special guests as they share stories, insights and behind the scenes moments from their journeys in football and life at Rangers. And that's this coming Friday as well. Now, that's the same day as the Old Firm game, so I'm not 100% sure what time that's going to be at. But if you're interested in that, go check the Rangers website out and find out the information you need. But good to see that it's not just the men that are getting those types of styles of events now. It's the Rangers women's team superstars that are getting them as well. Just a final reminder also of the Captain's Night, the ERA's Captain's Night, an evening with Barry Ferguson and special guests and that's in Edmiston House on the 19th of December, £40 for tickets for that. I'll leave the link in the show notes. Another reminder to please do like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That would really, really help us out and we would really appreciate it. Please ask a pal or a family member or a kid or your neighbour or a work colleague to do the very same. We don't spam a whole bunch of stuff. You get one notification a week that says there's a new a new podcast there, and then we'll go from there and get that figured out. But we would really appreciate that. It really does help us out in terms of our international reach, which then helps us with conversations with potential sponsors and marketing opportunities that we're trying to seek over the next wee while that Stephen has in his portfolio. Okay, folks, that will do it for this week. I suspect next week's will be a wee bit shorter to give you some time back with there being no particular games in there, but I did want to take this opportunity to mark. Obviously, we're almost at Remembrance Day. Rangers always do great work for Remembrance Day, and it's great to see some clubs decide not to do that, and some individuals decide not to do that, and some clubs decide, you know who I'm talking about, obviously, decide not to even observe a minute's silence. See if that's the case. Why don't you piss off somewhere else where that's actually acceptable behaviour? Why don't you do that? That would be a kind of cool thing, because you're disgusting and you're embarrassing yourselves and the entire country by doing that. But that's just what certain people can't help themselves with, I guess, really, isn't it? But on the more positive side, it's great to see such impeccable observation of everything that has been done to sacrifice for the life that we get to lead here across the entire world, not just in the UK or North America. And we couldn't have done it without those sacrifices that were being made. And it's just something that I don't think any of us would ever really truly be able to comprehend. And it's something that we live with and benefit from as a legacy. And my heartfelt thanks on behalf of myself and on behalf of NARSA goes to every single servicewoman and man out there that sacrifice their lives for our country. It doesn't go unnoticed. It doesn't go unthanked. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you very, very much. That'll do it for the pod this week, folks. Please do share it with someone you think might enjoy it, and we'll have a wee breather here, see what Danny can do over the next couple of weeks, and we'll be back with a bang in the next couple of weeks. Until next week, please do take care of yourself and all the very best, okay? Follow.